Hi. Today we'll talk about user experience, but maybe I will introduce myself a bit because this may explain why am I talking about this. Well, right now I'm working in CallStack and I'm developing React Native applications. And I finished psychology and marketing, so I'm kind of humanity fan. And creating buttons which will people touch with their fingers is probably the most satisfying thing which happened to me ever, and I really enjoy that. And I really feel like spreading the user experience spirit. It's really important to me. But before we will tell how, we should ask what. What is user experience in reality? Is it a good user interface? Well, I can tell you a story, which, by the way, I told this story 1 year ago, and it's still up to date, which is really not a good thing. Because this is an application, SkyCache, and if you didn't use it ever, it's like a transport payment hub. You can buy a tram ticket, buy ticket there, anything. Its user interface, it's quite good. You have some alert, which is orange, and you think it is alert because I see orange box. But does it mean it has good user experience? No. Long story short, recently I've been on the train in Katowice. We have a full LTE range in here. While the application says I don't have it, and it didn't see my internet connection, so I couldn't buy my train ticket there, and the controller goes towards me, and I start to sweat, and trust me, it was really bad experience. Now you can hear that good interface doesn't provide a good user experience. Good interface is important, but it's not enough to provide it. But why is it so important? I've been a web developer before, and first thing is the rush. I mean, I can't imagine a person who is running across the city with 16-inch laptop and trying to buy something, right? This doesn't happen, while in mobile this happens all the time. People want to buy things while running around the city, want to do anything crucial. So the app needs to be as fast as user lives. The other thing, this is not America, not everyone has an iPhone, and this is much more difficult to serve because browser is quite, let's say, safe place to develop application, and from my experience, it's much more harder to develop bad application in web than in mobile, because you have to consider more devices, platforms, and the hardware behind it. And last but not the least, there are 5 million mobile apps at the moment, so it's quite a big number to compete with, and you want to earn money because we love money, all does. So how do you handle that to provide an application which is smooth and beautiful? This is not an easy question because while we are programming, we have to make really big amount of small choices every day. Like, I can code this one thing or another, but to make that choice easier, first of all, you need to know your technology well. And the things I'm going to say doesn't apply only to React Native, because this is kind of a thing which applies to every JS2 native solutions, so hear me well. Let's say how React Native works. Well, you create some code, you have packager, and it creates a native app for you. Sounds easy, right? But like every technology has problems, React Native also has one big issue. This is the thing that the start point of your application happens in JS, while native thread, or let's say native area of memory, because these are not threads, has all informations about the device, the display, the gestures. So you basically really need those things. And the main point is this teeny tiny bridge between them, in which communication happens in JSON, and it's really slow and easy to clog. So you would think that the solution is to lower the amount of communication between JS and native. But let's think about animations, for example. I mean, this is the thing you do in mobile applications all the time. People touch your screen, you have to provide some response for that. And how do you lower the amount of communication between JS and native while you run your animation on JS and you need native? Let's use an example here, because the theory is not a good way to learn anything. So imagine such Mr. Cat comes to you because he knows you are a good programmer, and he is seeking for expertise. And Mr. Cat thought about creating an online store with dog traps and throwable toys, like he wants to have some cups to fall up from the desk, right? But he wants to have it fancy. Do you have a cat at home? Okay, few of us have. Cats are really demanding creatures, right? So you want to serve the cat the best way you can. And Cat was thinking about this thing, like the card, which is kind of like Messenger floating around the screen. So the user can put his finger and draw it around. So how do you do such thing? You remember that you have one challenge, to omit the communication between realms, right? So you can do it two ways, actually. You have one pill, which is JS pill, because React Native contains some built-in animations, which are JS-based animations. And the other thing is to put much more effort and to create native animation. What do you choose? First way, JS way, a bit lousy. Why is that? You know the theory how your technology works. So you can imagine that creating a JS animation is like you start the thing on JS, create set of instructions in JS, and you ask native all the time, hey native, how are you? Oh, user put his finger in here. Okay, native, so do this and that. And native says, okay, I'm done. And this happens all the time, 10 times per second. And this is really bad user experience. But you can put your much effort and choose the native approach, which is more like create set of instructions, set it in advance to the native, and then call just the native. Like JS says, hey native, if user puts his finger here, do this and that. And native does its job. And the user experience is much more better. By the way, the GIF you see is an application when I loaded the JS thread fully with calling really stupid requests on every touch. So JS is really busy in here, and while you create native animations, the experience is pretty smooth. So now you know how to choose the best option for animation in your case. But on the other hand, remember that your client is also a human being, and he has some needs. And sometimes you need to be reasonable to explain that. Imagine another scenario when Mr. Cat comes back again because he was really satisfied with your job. And Mr. Cat is holding a SpreadIT conference. But he had a bad luck, and he hired some students to create app for him, and it basically didn't happen. And now he asks for help because the conference is in 5 days, and he needs an application with agenda. So what do you do now? Do you still are stubborn and want to create the best solution possible? You know you need much time to create native solution. Well, this time maybe the JS is enough because you don't expect much animations. So be reasonable and use this engineering chart for your decisions every day. But while we are talking about native mobile experience, we still can't forget about the interface at all, because it is an important application part. So I won't tell you what colors do you use or how do you do in such situation and that, but you can keep some things in your mind. First of all, remember that users have hands, which are not that length, but that. And I recommend Stephen Hopper's research. He was just observing a lot of people, how do they handle the mobile screen and touch and hold the device. And he creates some charts what are good element sizes. And I highly recommend them for you to get familiar with. You can check the link later. And another thing. Ooh. What happened? Oh. How many programmers do you need to set up a projector? Okay, we are mostly there. Another thing for you, that ergonomy is still cool, and remember about it, and I highly recommend books which were written in 60s. I mean, we want to create a nice design as front-end developers, but sometimes this is not a good choice, because if you put too many colors, it's basically like seeing a red and green line at the same time and creates confusion. So please keep in mind that good application in the first place is have a good ergonomy level. And last but not the least, experiment as much as you can. Think for yourself, question authority, and if you are using some solution from a year now, it's probably outdated, so please seek for the new knowledge and test every day and have fun, because this is the best way to be a good developer. That's all for me for today, but if you are interested, you can check my GitHub. In there, there's a real store for cats, and you can check out the solutions for animations. I created some small comparison for it. So let's meet again. I guess we don't have much questions for time right now, but I'm really happy to talk about you in a moment, and probably I will have those for you as well. So if you have some questions, let's catch up later, okay? Thank you.